Front and Center. Front and Center. A focus on important and significant developments affecting the lives of Filipinos, not only in the Philippines, but also those living and working around the world. Join us in Front and Center. Front and Center. Here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service.
Welcome to Front and Center, where we focus on developments in the Philippines, legislation that provides policies and directions that strives to promote a better economy for the country, issues that concern the welfare and well-being of every Filipino. All of these and more will be front and center. And you can watch this program on our Facebook page and YouTube channel. That's Radyo Pilipinas World Service. And you can hear this broadcast on our audio streaming through PBS Evox receiver app. Also on our shortwave broadcast through the shortwave frequencies. That's 12.020 MHz, 15.640 MHz, and 17.665 MHz. This is your host, Jerome Toledo. Let's begin Front and Center on Radyo Pilipinas World Service.
Front and Center. Front and Center. Here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service.
Senator Sherwin Gatchalian is calling for tighter monitoring of oil companies amid the ongoing oil crisis, urging the Philippine Competition Commission or PCC to investigate the possible anti-competitive behavior and profiteering. During a Senate hearing, Senator Gatchalian emphasized the need to ensure that fuel price hikes are justified and that consumers are protected from excessive profits. He said that regulators are already tracking price movements and may take action if irregularities are found. Oil firms will also be required to submit financial data under a new law allowing the suspension of fuel excise taxes. And this information could guide potential government interventions, including a windfall tax if profits are deemed too high. Overall, Senator Gatchalian stressed the continuous oversight of both supply and pricing to abuse and protect its consumers as rising global oil prices drive up costs. Meanwhile, the senator urged the government agencies, particularly the Energy Department and the Philippine National Oil Company or PNOC, to act quickly to secure additional fuel supplies amid growing global uncertainty. And oil companies warned lawmakers that petroleum supply is becoming harder to secure due to the ongoing closure of the Strait of Hormuz, a critical route for global oil shipments. And this has disrupted the supply chains as the closure of that body of water, worsened by export restrictions from countries like China, Thailand, and Singapore. Industry leaders from companies such as Petron Corporation, Shell Pilipinas Corporation, and Chevron Philippines said current fuel reserves may only last about 2 months, raising concerns of shortages by late April or May. And Senator Gatchalian warned that failing to secure supply could now lead to a major crisis. Meanwhile, the DOE or Energy Department is monitoring possible hoarding and profiteering and is considering measures such as suspending or reducing fuel excise taxes. So that's a decision from President Marcos Jr. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. has approved this week. So we are still waiting for the implementing rules and regulation regarding the law that suspends the fuel excise taxes. And also, since yesterday, the Philippine government has received around 22.58 million liters or 142,000 barrels of diesel oil to help boost local fuel supply amid disruptions caused by the ongoing Middle East conflict. The fuel was procured under the Department of Energy's Emergency Energy Security Program, which has a 20 billion Philippine peso budget and is part of efforts tied to Executive Order 110 declaring a national energy emergency. And that delivery is the first of several expected shipments. So this is not the first time that Philippines will receive oil supply in some other oil producing countries, with the government aiming to secure up to 2 million barrels of additional fuel through the Philippine National Oil Corporation and its exploration arm. Energy Secretary Sharon Garin said the move is meant to prevent disruptions to transportation, like livelihoods, and daily activities, assuring that more fuel deliveries are underway in the coming weeks. And also, since we're talking about the energy supply, President Marcos Jr. announced yesterday, March 26, a major milestone in Malampaya gas project with the successful drilling of the Camago 3 well, which can produce up to 60 million standard cubic feet of gas daily. And this is part of the Malampaya Phase 4 expansion and follows the earlier Malampaya East 1 discovery. The new well is expected to significantly boost the country's local energy supply, with Camago 3 containing 2.5 times more recoverable gas than MAE-1 or Malampaya East 1 discovery. Together, these discoveries could extend the life of the Malampaya gas field by about 6 years. So that's what the president said. The Malampaya Deepwater Gas to Power project currently supplies around 20% of Luzon's electricity, and expansion aims to ensure more stable and cheaper power. And we hope we have that clip coming from the president regarding his statements on the discovery of the Malampaya gas project there, or the discovery of oil gas or gas elements there in the Malampaya gas field. And also, the Malampaya gas costs about 4 pesos and 80 centavos per kilowatt hour, much lower than imported LNG or liquefied natural gas at, or which tags at 10 pesos and 30 centavos per kilowatt hour. And President Marcos emphasized that the development will help reduce dependence on imported fuel, especially amid global energy uncertainties. And the project also includes new subsea pipelines, which is the first one since year 2000, to support the increased gas delivery. And also, the government is targeting first gas output from the new developments by the fourth quarter of 2026, with further explorations underway, including the upcoming Bagong Pag-asa well. So we have more and more discoveries of gas deposits there in the Malampaya gas fields, and we hope those discoveries will lead to energy security, and that should last for a few years, or if not decades. And also, since we're talking about the government interventions in addressing the rising oil prices caused by the Middle East tensions, the Transportation Department, led by Acting Secretary Giovanni Lopez, has ordered the deployment of additional vehicles for the government's free ride program during the second week of an ongoing transport strike. Agencies such as the Land Transportation Office and Land Transportation Franchising and Regulatory Board have mobilized service vehicles across key routes in Metro Manila to assist stranded commuters. And these efforts are supported by other government units, including the Office of the President, Police, and the Coast Guard. And officials said the free ride program may continue even after the strike ends to further help the public. Meanwhile, since we're talking about the ongoing transport strike, these groups such as Manibela is leading the protest in about 20 locations nationwide, which was joined by various transport sectors and commuter groups. And another group is calling, or transport group rather, is calling for the repeal of the oil deregulation law, citing alleged profiteering in the energy sector. Since we're talking about the or we're going back a bit about the oil industry here in the Philippines. The oil industry players are supporting a proposal to suspend the value added tax or VAT on petroleum products, saying it would lead to faster and more direct fuel price cuts for consumers. During Senate hearing, representatives from small oil firms and major companies like Shell and Petron explained on Thursday, March 26, that removing VAT or taxes at the point of importation would immediately lower costs and make price reductions at the pump more efficient and noticeable. And since VAT is percentage based, it also increases when global oil prices rise, further burdening consumers. And lawmakers are considering the VAT suspension as an additional measure alongside the existing law allowing fuel excise tax suspension, which was signed by President Marcos Jr. this week to help ease the impact of rising global oil prices. And that proposal, which is suspension of VAT, is expected to be discussed further as part of broader efforts to address the ongoing oil crisis. And now let's shift to another angle, but still affecting the Filipinos, particularly the overseas Filipino workers, as the Social Security System or SSS has assured overseas Filipino workers in the Middle East that they can still access its benefits and services despite ongoing regional conflicts through its digital platform. And SSS President Robert Joseph Declaro emphasized that the portal or SSS portal, which is my.sss portal, allows members to file benefit claims and loan applications online without interruption as long as they meet requirements. And overseas Filipino workers who lose their jobs involuntarily may also apply for the unemployment benefits. And and still subject to certification by the Department of Migrant Workers, obviously. And the agency also introduced a facial authentication feature for pensioners to complete their annual confirmation of pensioners that can be done remotely, reducing the need for travel and minimizing fraud risks. So those are the measures have SSS taken to address the concerns of overseas Filipino workers who wish to avail the services of the Social Security. And also, the SSS highlighted that these digital tools ensure continuous, secure, and convenient service for OFWs, noting that as of December 2025 rather, it covers nearly 1.48 million OFWs with over 540,000 actively contributing members. So that's a good thing that that SSS has measures that they have implemented to assist those overseas Filipino workers who wish to avail their services. And also now shifting, since we're talking about the Middle East crisis, as the Department of Foreign Affairs or DFA said, it will continue exploring energy partnerships worldwide following the arrival of Russian oil here in the Philippines. That was yesterday, while ensuring national interests are protected. It emphasized that decision on energy security will be led by the Department of Energy. And Malacanang confirmed that a shipment of 700,000 barrels of Russian crude oil recently arrived after the U.S. lifted sanctions, and that particular barrels of oil was ordered from a private oil company. Meanwhile, Foreign Affairs Secretary Maria Teresa Lazaro said the Philippine embassies have been directed to find additional oil sources globally. And that comes as President Marcos Jr. has declared a national energy emergency, prompting the government to secure stable energy supplies while maintaining international cooperation. And more stories coming your way here in the program Front and Center on Radyo Pilipinas World Service as we tackle about the government interventions and actions as we deal and face the rising oil prices here in the country as a result of the global tensions, particularly in the Middle East tension. So we will have to update you regarding that. But first, the program will be right back after these short messages.
Garantisadong solusyon at aksyon ang handog sa iyo ng Bagong Pilipinas Presidential Action Center. Sundin lang ang mga sumusunod para makakuha ng appointment. Para sa wala pang eGov PH app account, panoorin ang video para malaman kung paano gumawa ng account. Kung meron ng account sa eGov PH app, mag-login dito. Saka hanapin ang online registration tab para sa Bagong Pilipinas Presidential Action Center. Pindutin ito para makita ang available na government services. Piliin ang serbisyo na iyong kailangan mula sa listahan. I-upload ang requirements ng serbisyong kailangan mo. Pumili ng petsa at oras kung kailan nais pumunta sa Bagong Pilipinas Presidential Action Center. I-submit na ang iyong application at bigyan ng pagkakataon na ma-review ang iyong isinumiting requirements. Hintayin ang QR code para sa kumpirmasyon ng iyong schedule. Makakatanggap ka ng text message para malaman kung naaprubahan ito. Sakaling hindi ito maaprubahan, makakatanggap ka rin ng text message para ipaalam ang kulang na requirements sa kasubukang mag-register ulit. Kung nakatanggap na ng kumpirmasyon, maaari nang pumunta sa Bagong Pilipinas Presidential Action Center sa napiling schedule, dala ang QR code at ang mga isinumiting requirements. Huwag kalimutang dumating sa itinakdang araw at oras ng iyong appointment. Pinapaalala rin na siguruhing may kumpirmadong schedule bago pumunta sa Bagong Pilipinas Presidential Action Center para maiwasang magpabalik-balik. Simple at user-friendly ang pagpapa-appointment dito, kaya huwag nang mangamba dahil sa Bagong Pilipinas Presidential Action Center, tulong ay abot kamay na.
Mabilis ang trivia, dagdag talino. Heto na ang Dagling Kaalaman! Mga kababayan, maging alerto sa rainfall advisories ng Pag-asa. Yellow Rainfall Advisory. Kapag malakas ang ulan, mula 7.5 hanggang 15 millimeters sa loob ng isang oras, mag-ingat dahil posible itong magdulot ng pagbaha sa mababang lugar. Orange Rainfall Advisory. Mas malakas na ulan, mula 15 hanggang 30 millimeters. Malaki ang posibilidad ng pagbaha, kaya maghanda at maging alerto. Red Rainfall Advisory. Emergency na ito. Higit 30 millimeters ng ulan sa loob ng 3 oras o higit pa. Kapag nakataas ang red advisory sa inyong lugar, huwag mag-aksaya ng oras. Agad na lumikas para sa kaligtasan ng inyong pamilya. Maging handa, makinig sa abiso at laging unahin ang kaligtasan. Kaunting kaalaman na malaking dagdag talino. Abangan muli ang susunod na Dagling Kaalaman!
Paano nga ba mag-register para magkaroon ng schedule sa Bagong Pilipinas Presidential Action Center? Narito ang mga dapat gawin. Gamit ang iyong mobile device, pumunta sa eGov PH app. Pwede itong i-download mula sa Apple App Store o sa Google Play Store. Gumawa ng account. Ilagay ang email address, valid mobile number, pagkatapos ay makakatanggap ka ng one-time code sa iyong email. Gamitin ang code sa eGov app para sa verification ng iyong account at ng mga impormasyong ibinigay. Congratulations! Meron ka ng eGov PH app account. Pwede mo na ma-access ang iba't ibang serbisyo ng gobyerno kabilang ang mga serbisyo sa Bagong Pilipinas Presidential Action Center.
Front and center. Front and center. Here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service.
Welcome back to Front and Center here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service. Still with me, Jerome Toledo. And as promised, we're going to deliver you some updates regarding the government's efforts and response to the rising oil prices that is due to the tensions in the Middle East, as the palace, through its press officer, Claire Castro, assured Filipinos that the government will take all possible actions within legal limits to ease the impact of the Middle East crisis, particularly rising oil prices. And due to that, President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. has signed the Republic Act number 12316, granting him emergency powers to reduce or suspend fuel excise taxes, though the exact amount of reduction is still under review due to fluctuating oil prices. And the law will take effect after the standard 15-day grace period to ensure its due process. The government is also considering various proposals, including a wealth tax, but economic officials and economists alike are or noted that while it may reduce inequality, it is difficult to implement and could cause capital flight. And one of those economic officials or economic team who have expressed concerns on the wealth tax is the Socio-Economic Planning or DepDev Secretary Arsenio Balisacan. And for now, the fastest government response is to keep prices of basic goods stable, with officials coordinating with manufacturers to prevent price increases. And as far as our interview with Trade Secretary Maria Cristina Roque is concerned, she said that basic prices of particularly the prime commodities and basic necessities will remain stable, and the Trade Department has reached out to manufacturers, and manufacturers agreed that they will not increase their products within the next 30 days or within the next 30 or 60 days. So that's their commitment rather to the Filipino public. And the Trade Department also assured that the prices will not be moving as she calls out the Filipino public to remain calm as we face in this situation caused by the rising oil prices. And the palace emphasized limits to government intervention, as Undersecretary Claire Castro puts it. First one is the oil deregulation law, which cannot be suspended without Congress approval. And second, the state can only step in if there is an abuse by oil companies. And also, thirdly, to help affected sectors such as the public utility drivers, the government will also provide 5,000 Philippine pesos special payout to public utility vehicle drivers who missed earlier fuel subsidies or assistance rather. Overall, the government is balancing legal constraints with immediate relief measures, which aims to cushion the economic impact of the crisis. And just this week, as we're talking about the Executive Order number 110, suspending the fuel excise tax, the business groups in the Philippines, led by the Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry, or PCCI, and the Federation of Philippine Industries, or FPI, welcome Malacanang's declaration, about the Executive Order 110, which declares placing the country under state of national energy emergency. I have to redact on that. As those business groups welcome the declaration of state of national energy emergency, which is under Executive Order number 110, calling it timely amid rising global energy prices caused by the Middle East conflict. And they warned that prolonged conflict could severely affect the economy, especially micro, small, and medium enterprises, or MSMEs, due to rising fuel, transport, and production costs. And businesses stress the need for stable fuel supply at least 90 days, transparent implementation of government measures, and long-term energy planning. And the government's uplift framework was also supported for providing coordinated assistance to industries and communities. Meanwhile, companies are adapting by the following: the cutting costs and improving efficiency, adjusting operations, for example, off-peak production, and also encouraging remote work. And also, part of the plan is the renegotiating supply contracts and streamlining logistics, and diversifying supply chains and increasing local sourcing, and exploring renewable energy like solar power Overall, the crisis highlights the need to strengthen its local manufacturing, energy security, and economic resilience to better withstand global shocks. And speaking of withstanding global shocks, the Asian Development Bank, or ADB, is prepared to provide swift financial and technical support to developing member countries, or DMCS, affected by the Middle East conflict. And ADB President Masato Kanda emphasized the rapid, flexible assistance and including budget support rather, and trade and supply chain finance to secure essential imports like oil, food, and energy. And the bank will use its counter-cyclical support facility to help governments stabilize economies and protect vulnerable population. And ADB highlighted risks from global market disruptions, including higher shipping costs, delays, energy price volatility, inflation, and potential impacts on agriculture, food production rather, tourism, and remittance-reliant economies. And discussions with the most affected countries have begun to coordinate effective responses and maintain economic stability across Asia and the Pacific. So those are the government's efforts to address the rising oil prices that's now affecting our economy. And meanwhile, still related to the Middle East crisis, the Defense Department, or the Philippine Defense Department, through its Secretary Gilbert Teodoro Jr., urged the immediate reopening of the Strait of Hormuz, which Iran has nearly closed following the U.S.-Israeli strikes that began the Middle East war on February 28th. The closure has caused global oil and gas prices to spike. And President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. declared a national energy emergency due to the threats to the Philippines' fuel supply and energy stability. Secretary Teodoro emphasized the urgency for both seafarers' safety and Filipino consumers facing high energy costs, noting that reopening depends on meeting insurance and ship owner requirements. And around 30 countries, including France, Britain, Germany, Italy, the Netherlands, and Japan, have expressed willingness to help ensure the safe passage. And Britain and France will chair military talks this week to form a coalition to reopen the strait. And just this morning, we have received an information regarding the supply of oil, because President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. said the Philippines has enough crude oil supply until June 30, 2026. But the government is still working to secure additional sources. He pertains the additional oil supply that's on top of the oil supply that has reached on our shores. So that's add up the crude oil supply that's will last until the end of June. And this comes after he declared a national energy emergency on March 24 due to rising global oil prices. And as of March 20 inventory rather, the country had about 45 days worth of fuel supply, with plans to add 1 million barrels of oil as buffer stock. And under Executive Order number 110, which is the declaration of state of national energy emergency, the Energy Department is tasked to ensure stable energy supply and lessen the impact of global disruptions, especially as diesel and gasoline prices are expected to surge significantly. And also, since we're talking about, again, the overseas Filipino workers' welfare, the Israel has reiterated its commitment to protecting overseas Filipino workers following the death of a Filipino caregiver in a missile strike linked to escalating conflict with Iran. Israeli ambassador to the Philippines, Dana Kirsch, acknowledged that while full protection is impossible, Israel is making every effort to ensure the safety of both its citizens and foreign workers. Ambassador Kirsch expressed condolences to the family of the slain OFW, assured continued assistance and compensation, and emphasized that all victims of war or terror in Israel, including overseas Filipino workers, will be supported. And she also voiced hope for a peaceful resolution to the ongoing Middle East conflict, which continues to affect areas like Gaza Strip and Lebanon, where many Filipinos live and work. And before we go, I would like to tell you that President Marcos Jr. Attended the 47 commencement exercises of the Philippine National Police Academy, which is Silang Paglaom class of 2026. Typically, PNPA graduation ceremonies are held in late April, but the previous Sinaglawing class of 2025 graduated on April 29th, 2025. So this year, the graduation rites of the Philippine National Police Academy went earlier. So it went earlier by few weeks. So right now, today, March 27, President Marcos Jr. attended that graduation ceremony. And the class of 2026 rites to take place at Camp General Mariano Castañeda in Silang, Cavite. So that's the annual tradition of PNPA graduation. And now, here's what we know about the class, the 2026 class, which is Silang Paglaom class. And that name translates to Rising Hope, combining Silang, which in English, rising or birth, and Paglaom, the Visayan word for hope. And traditionally, the President of the Philippines serves as the guest of honor and also the speaker as well, personally awarding the presidential kampilan to the class valedictorian. And as we heard, the Secretary of Interior and Local Government and also the National Police Commission Commissioner will spearhead the exercises as well, including the Police General in that ceremony. And the graduates, since we're talking about the career paths, the graduates will be commissioned as police lieutenants for the Philippine National Police, inspectors for the Bureau of Jail Management and Penology, or BJMP, and inspectors for the Bureau of Fire Protection. With that, we now conclude this edition of Front and Center here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service. Together with our technical team headed by Mr. Milo Janela, on Warcast and audio streaming, we have Miss Justine Osias. This is your host, Jerome Toledo. Until next time, mabuhay.
You have just heard and watched Front and Center. Front and Center. Join us again for another edition here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service. Front and Center.